Hi guys, I'm Shmee, and today you join me at Manhart to take a look at this car behind me, the MH3 550. 550 horsepower in an E30 M3. Now this isn't actually any standard M3, this is one of the special 30 Jahre editions. 30 years of the model, BMW made a special edition, 500 of them globally, with some of the sort of upgrades from the M3 competition. So you've got power by standard in this car up to 450 from 430, torque is 550. Then you talk about the Manhart modifications, and that power goes up another 100 horsepower to 550, and the torque goes from 550 to 700 Newton meters. So this is a pretty powerful beast. We're going to take a little look around it now, then I'm going to go for a test drive and see what it's like out on the roads. Let's get started though with a little bit of a walk around, and at first you can see, some subtle modifications. If I come in a little bit closer, you will see that it has a brand new carbon fibre bonnet. I'll open that up shortly and we can have a look inside at the engine, but you can see those sort of vents that are made over the top for cooling of the engine itself. Around the car though, not too much else has changed. It's got the large Manhart 21-inch wheels all around, front and rear. You can see the MH3 550 name designation there behind that 30 Jahre M3 badge. Like I said, only 500 of these in the world. We only had 30 as it happens over in the UK, so it's pretty special. And that took, in a standard car, the 0 to 62 miles an hour or 100 kilometer an hour time down by 1/10 of a second from 4.1 to 4.0, rear wheel drive of course. It has the M 7-speed DCT gearbox that's slightly reworked for a little bit more power and torque. If we come around to the rear, it's got a new exhaust system, changed pretty much all the way through to the back, so I'm looking forward to hearing how that sounds. It's also got Manhart's carbon fibre lip spoiler at the rear of the car too, but otherwise it's a pretty highly sort of spec'd machine. Straight from the factory, the 30 Jahre edition started at about £84,000 or so quite a sort of hefty upgrade even on the M3 competition. But let us have a quick look at the inside right now. So open the car. I mean, it's keyless, so I didn't technically need the key, but we can have a glimpse in here where some sort of cool things about the 30 Jahre edition in general. The side step sill there. You've got Manhart's badge in the center of the steering wheel, but you've got the sort of M stitching. So you've got the sort of multicolored stitching around here. And one of my favorite things is the seatbelt. I just love the way that works with the sort of M touches going on. But Manhart have also installed the Oron display here in the center that we'll see more of while we're driving, with all sorts of data information. It's got KW springs, so you can see the car is sitting a tad lower here. But let's come through here and do the double pull to open the bonnet. And this is carbon fibre glory. We lift this up, you can see the embossed Manhart logo on the underside, but literally the straight carbon fibre that you've got there, which is really rather nice. And down here, the extra power from the 3-litre turbocharged straight 6 that the BMWs carry comes from the exhaust system, new intake setup, and ECU modifications to get that extra power. So fairly simple in this instance. You could technically have 700 horsepower in here if you change the turbochargers. So they offer that, and they also offer new sort of carbon fibre components as well for the intake covers and the engine cover. So, well, that's all fairly self-explanatory. You have to give this quite a shut, so fix that down into place. Around the car though, you wouldn't necessarily think it stands out too much, but this is a 550 horsepower, 4-door, comfortable sports saloon. I mean, the M3 obviously now is just the 4-door variant with the M4 covering the sort of coupe and convertible, but it's a car that's had a huge history, a huge lifespan, covering those 30 years. This is the 5th generation of it now, and I think in that time they've probably sold about 250,000 models of M3. So that's quite a few out there, and obviously a lot of you guys are probably quite interested in the older ones, the E30, the E36, the E46, and then the E90 generation, the E90, the E92 was the coupe. And then this is the sort of latest from 3 years ago or so in the form of the F80 with the M3, and then the M4 had its separate model. But let me jump in, because we're going to start this up and see how it sounds. That sounds like a statement of intent to me from that car. It's kind of a gruff, angry noise.
You'll hear plenty more of that when we're driving.
Now this car is a bit of a wolf in sheep's clothing because you start out with the BMW 3 Series, which is pretty much the ultimate repmobile, to be completely honest. But then you take it to BMW M GmbH, who turn it into the M3, which is a pretty crazy car in its own right. Then it's been to Manhart, it's got 100 horsepower more, it is unbelievably noisy, and I can tell it has serious intent by the fact that on this very wet road right now, it basically wants to just bite away at any possible moment. Now, the weather is also a bit of wolf in sheep's clothing today because now it's sunny, but a moment ago it was literally pouring down with rain, so I need to be a little bit careful at the moment. Let's just get sort of familiar with the car and learn a little bit about it. And you have the sort of 4 configurable settings. So you've got the powertrain, which is currently in sport, the suspension in sport, the steering in sport, and the gearbox setting is in the middle of the 3 different modes you can have on the 7-speed M DCT, double clutch, 7 gears. Brilliant sort of system for changing everything to a huge sort of degree either end of the spectrum. Now you have the M1 and M2 settings on the steering wheel. M1 takes it at the moment to full comfort, everything goes into comfort mode. As I lift off, you get some burbles there. Then you've got the M2 setting, which if you press twice, because it puts the traction ESC into sport as well, basically turns everything to Sport Plus. It will open up the valves, which you can control independently, and it all gets a little bit noisy. So even just crawling along really slowly here, let's just put the window down for a second and drop the gears. You hear that? The burbles, the crackles, the general craziness of this car. It just keeps going on. If you can hear that over the rain noise. That noise is just silly. And you can close it, you can turn it on, you can put it in auto, you can set that up however you want. It's the most ridiculous sound ever. I'm mesmerised by it. I'm genuinely mesmerised by it. Anyway, let's talk about the driving. Let's put my foot down a little bit. So, that got away without lighting up traction. That's been the main problem so far, that basically whatever I do in here, traction control has a major habit of coming on. Do you know what? This is so good. Let's pull over and listen to it for a moment. Just listen to this for a moment. We're in M2, so Sport Plus everything. And as you can see here, the flap is open. I'm just going to blip it slightly. It's ridiculous! Those crackles and burbles are insane! And if I now close the flap, which you can do like that, and press M1, which is completely configured for comfort, so it's all the quietest, you can hear now that it is quite heavily valve controlled, but for driving, back to M2, back to noisy. That's how we like it. Off we go. Okay, it's very slippy today. I've made that pretty clear, and I'm feeling it now. But this is a pretty rough road, so let's see what the car is like in this kind of environment. It's really strange how wet it is, but now the sky is sort of turning blue and sunny in front of me. It just drives really well. It has new differentials, so the competition package in the M330 Jahre has a new diff, which really does tighten the car up nicely. It's been sort of awarded that, I guess, accolade a few times now, but I don't really know what else I can say, because this isn't really a BMW M3 review. It's more a sort of, I guess, experience of the Manhart exhaust system and how much power there is, which I can't really use on a day like today, like I've sort of, I think, explained and kind of demonstrated a little bit. Even now, just full power and you can't go anywhere, even accelerating from in the 90 kilometers per hour. So you got to play it sensibly, you got to play it safe, and obviously this is being slightly unfair on the car because I can turn all the assistants back on and then it's not going to do that. And if I press M1 even and go full back into comfort and quiet and then close the exhaust valve, it becomes a lot more civilized and usable. And to be honest, this car is completely usable. By giving it this much power, so long as you have the ability to control your own right foot, That's the important thing. If you, as the driver, have the ability not to turn the wheel a little bit and stab the throttle, then you're going to be just fine. You can use it as a nice, comfortable cruiser. It doesn't lose any of the sort of comfort side of things. But at the other end of the spectrum, it dials it up a lot, and it is just hilarious. It's just awesome fun. It's not sort of big like a 5 Series or a 7 Series, so you don't feel like you're in a big heavy car. You still feel like you're in something, you know, 1.5 tons or whatever it is, 1.6 tons. It's sort of civilized, normal, but it's practical. It's an M3. Now the M3 might not be as popular as the M4 is. I don't think they've ever sold as many of the recent generations. You know, even the E90 I think was a small number, maybe a fifth or a sixth of all of the M3s, M4s, all of the M3s of that generation. But I mean, it really is a pretty nice all-round sort of car package, and this setup and this amount of fun. It's just the exhaust. Let's just pop the window down a notch, go back to the M2 mode, drop some gears. Oh, that's with the valves closed. Let's open them. There we go. It's funny. You know what? When I came to Manhart to drive the Mercedes C63S, the CAE CR700, that was fun. And this is fun. Of this class of car, they seem to do a wonderful job of making them very, very entertaining. Anyway, let's head back towards Manhart and have a sort of look around a little bit more, just a tiny bit, before wrapping this one up. Oh well, drive comes to an end, but a quick sort of little look around the inside of this car, the MH3 550, and you have this sort of control here using the cruise control buttons to go through different modes on the display, which has quite a neat little Manhart logo there as well. So you can see what I've used since I last stopped the car, 397 horsepower, which is a fair number. I've used 601 Newton meters of torque, cool. That's without going foot flat. Since then, all sorts of different bits and pieces. The car itself, by the way, you have all these different settings I was telling you about that you can change: traction, powertrain, suspension, steering, and the gearbox setting as well for the DCT. So you've got plenty of things you can play around with there and set the car up how you want it. And you know, to go into M2 mode here, twice to confirm, that's when you get this. It's just a little bit silly, but it is so amazing. It is so amazing that if you press it again, it goes back to normal. Oh boy, what a car. So that's been fairly entertaining. We can turn it off. You're supposed to have left it in first gear, so if I turn it back on a moment, pop it into first, handbrake is on, then we can turn it on the happy way. And the car is happier with me now. But let's step out and have a last little look around the MH3 550 and the colour. Shout out to the colour. It's Macau blue, and I guess it's a historical BMW colour, but it looks really nice. I've had it out in the sunshine. It's funny that it's now dry here. It was sort of pouring when I left, but the way the car sat on the slight hill here, it does look rather low on that corner, but it's sort of a neat sort of height that lets the wheels, I guess, fill the arch as they should, especially with the 21s. And it's mostly, you know, it's quite discreet. You wouldn't sort of look at this car, I mean, imagine it had normal wheels on it. You wouldn't look at it and think it had 550 horsepower. It's not that different from a 3 Series. I mean, obviously, if you know, quad exhaust pipes, lip spoiler, that sort of side of things. But definitely a bit of a weapon. Anyway, big thanks to Manhart for letting me take the car out for a drive. Thank you to you guys too for watching and being subscribed and following my videos as always. But I'm going to leave this one for there, so thank you very much again, and I'll catch up with you again very soon. Cheers!